It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of TAXITV Live. I've got to say, I'm nervous today because we've had a major technical problem that seems to be working at the moment. If we have any failures today, know that we will recreate this amazing episode next week. Welcome to TAXITV. Only 2 more to go before Christmas. I was sick all weekend. My wife had a virus last week, got really bad vertigo from it, like falling down a lot vertigo and other stuff that went along with it. I caught it, no vertigo, spent the weekend, well, at least half of it in bed, and the other half I should have been in bed and wasn't. So a little under the weather today. My voice isn't my usual broadcast ready voice, but we will make it through because this episode is going to be so much fun. It's going to be as much fun as the much vaunted Taxi Quarantini happy hours. So we are going to do Ask Michael Anything today, but before we do, I promised you guys that I would tell you about my day over at the Foo Fighters private studio here in Los Angeles, and you will they do not let you photograph anything except the control room and the live room. That's it. Not even the bathroom. I was going to take a picture of the toilet and go, Dave Grohl peed in that toilet, but I resisted. Didn't want to get anybody in trouble. Anyway, so the amount of photos I have are quite limited, but I got to tell you, it's not the most high-tech looking studio in the world as far as design and everything, but the place just reeks of comfort. And it works great. It sounds great. The live room sounds great. The control room sounds great. And it's not open to the public. You have to know somebody within their organization or the Foo Fighters band or one of the engineers at the studio in order to go do a session there when they're not busy doing their own records. And I did get a tour of all the private stuff in the back that you're not allowed to photograph under any circumstances, but it is all of their gear. Not some of their gear. Hang on, I'm going to shut a window here so I don't have to see anything. There we go. Okay, so all their gear is there, although I understand that they do have, some amps and guitars maybe floating around their houses, but I'm talking hundreds of guitars, many dozens of amplifiers, every kind of amplifier you can possibly think of. Drum kits. The session it was Rob Chiarelli was producing, an artist. I'm not at liberty to discuss anything, but they were using Dave Grohl's personal kit that he uses on the Foo Fighter records. It does. Somebody's asking, how does it smell? Most studios, as I've often said, smell like stale beer. They used to smell like stale cigarette butts and ashtrays, occasionally weed or maybe vomit smell. But bottom line is, smelled pretty good. So, but before I do that, over the years, many times people have asked, can you do a tour around the taxi office? So I'm feeling a little loosey-goosey because the holidays are coming. We're all in a very good mood. So I did a little walk around using the webcam that I do the show with, but without all the fancy lighting and it autofocus. So bottom line, in the audio, I used a little wireless clip-on microphone, a little wireless lavalier that we use for road rally videos. And frankly, it sounded kind of like this. Anyway, so let me play the little studio tour. It's 10 minutes long. Then I'm going to go through the photos of Foo Fighters studio. And then I am going to answer the questions that came in before the show, as well as anything that comes in through the live chat. So keep your fingers crossed. And here comes the walk around. It's not my most polished work, I'll tell you that. Wow, plenty loud, huh?
Here's the lobby. Not that exciting as far as lobbies go, but ooh, little focus issue there. Let's start out with the A&R room. There's Craig looking like Mickey Mouse. There's Eric. Eric will be departing soon to move to Oklahoma. We're going to miss him a lot. Craig has been seen crying in the men's room. And here's Tom. Where is Tom? Vaping. Yeah. Some gold and platinum records from years past. Craig's profile. The autofocus is being a little weird. There's a little musical art. We've got a lot of musical art. More gold and platinum. This is the listing board. And there is the famous Crossfade record. There's the horrible view the guys have. Washed out looking, but nice view till you look into that building over there. Yeah. All right. And continuing on. Oh. If Macaulay Culkin were a serial killer, that's what he would look like. Office storage. Here's the kitchen. All kinds of taxi memorabilia everywhere you go in this place. Refrigerator. There's Tom coming back. Hello. Member services. That's Matt with his brand new shiny haircut. Yep. There's Liz.
Hi, y'all.
Not with a haircut. There's the official taxi surfboard. All right. Whee.
Thanks for visiting.
Here's Angel's office. This is accounting and HR. She's working at her mom's house today, so she's not there. More musical art. Oh, check this out. The taxi memorabilia. More musical art. And stuff left over from the road rally that's still getting put away. Musical art everywhere. That used to be a chair. Now it's John Lee Hooker. And of course, the office would not be complete without a shot of Robert De Niro and Taxi Driver. Here's the marketing department. Ashmita. We're getting a lot of glare off that car out there. Can you whip those blinds shut?
Yep, I got it.
She's so talented.
Look at that. Just like that.
More musical art everywhere we look in this place. This is Hala. She's the latest addition to Taxi. She's been here for 3 weeks, and we're so glad that she's joined us. Believe it or not, I'm going to try and paint this office over the holidays and get that art hung up. Anyway, nice seeing you, ladies. Here's the wall of Taxi magazine ads. There's the lyric sheet to I Loved Her First, which became a #1 song. I was a Taxi member. A bunch of old ads. That was the last studio I worked in New York. Loved that room. Beautiful SSL 6048. Bunch of other memorabilia. More Road Rally storage. Pretty exciting, wouldn't you say? Here's my office. I keep this quote on the door from Taxi member Andrew Jordan, who actually worked with us for a couple of years as our screener writer. By the way, we do have people that work remotely for us that aren't in the office. Andrew was one of those.
He was actually
Probably
the listing
my favorite
writer.
Piece of art in the whole place. Ooh, here's something a lot of people don't get to see. Some of my favorite marketing books. The lighting that I use for TAXITV. Chairs with leftover Road Rally stuff. And there it is, folks, the nerve center. That's the desk where I do all the TAXITV episodes from, without the green screen up. Oil painting of my grandfather that I loved as a kid, so now that lives here. The Taxi cow. And back here is the junk room. Oh, look, there's the computer that I wrote the business plan on to start Taxi. That was my then fiance's computer when she was in grad school, now my wife. As a matter of fact, today it's been 36 years since the night we met each other. So happy anniversary, honey. Anyway, that computer still has the original business plan on it. More books, more junk, cleaning stuff. It's really not that exciting. There are daily calendars for all the years that Taxi's been around, and all my notebooks filled with ideas. Down there, some 24 tracks and albums that I worked on back in the day. That's it. Just as you can see, I'm actually a pretty organized person, but my office has always been a mess and continues to be a mess. Oh, the MSP7 studio monitors. Those were created by the guy that invented the NS10 as the follow-up to the NS10. They never caught on, but I've got a pair. The imaging on those is remarkable. That's where my computer goes. Mixer for TAXITV. Check this out. Instant green screen for doing TAXITV. Stays out of the way when you don't need it. And that, folks, is the end of the tour. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Okay, there you have it, the big tour. I think some people think that we have an office like 100 people in a high rise somewhere. We don't, but we have a highly effective, very hardworking staff that I'm always proud of. Let me get the chat room open. Hope you guys like the tour. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some shots. Like I said, limited. You are only allowed at Foo Fighters studio to take pictures of anything in the control room and anything out in the live room, and that's it. Man, their amp collection and guitars boggles the mind. Anyway, okay, so let me start out here. Here is a shot of Rob Chiarelli and myself. And there we are leaning on the Neve that was in the documentary about Sound City, which had, so many great albums, Nirvana's albums, Tom Petty records, Fleetwood Mac, Paul McCartney did stuff. Just an amazing bunch of people that recorded there. That Neve is an 8028. Nobody under the roof could tell me exactly what year that particular one was made, but I do believe, my volume's a little low. I do believe that there are only 4 of those left in the world. And that one, for engineers, true studio rats, that thing is like the mecca of recording consoles. I don't think there's a professional engineer alive that doesn't know that console. Here's another shot of it. And oddly enough, I forgot to ask why they've got this, but they also have this API, relatively modern, probably like 10, 15-year-old API console that also sits in the control room. I'm guessing they use that for extra inputs, maybe when they're doing like full band live stuff or something. And they did tell me that they put in some classic preamps above the, that's right, my cursor is not showing up on your screen. Anyway, so there it is, an extra console in the control room. Studer multi-tracks. These are the newer ones. I had one of those in my room in New York, and I got to say, that is one sweet-sounding machine. They've got 3 of them, and they still use them. Sometimes they cut to tape and then bounce it over to Pro Tools. Here is a close-up of the producer desk on the Neve, and in the middle of that one, you can barely make it out, but that's Paul McCartney's signature right there. Let's see what this one was. They're really hard to read. Some of them are worn off, and let's face it, not everybody's writing is all that legible. Apparently, Stevie Nicks has very good handwriting because you can read her signature just fine. Joan Jett was in there somewhere. I don't know if I've got that shot in here. Can you guys make out what any of those are? I thought maybe that one down near the bottom was Randy Bachman, but I don't think so. I'm looking at these while you're looking at them, trying to see what the hell they say. Who knows? All right, and now we're moving on to the guitar amps, and all these are Dave's amps. Basically, I think you can use any of the gear that's in there under the roof. I'm sure that there are guitars that are his main guitars that are do not touch, but I think that the amps, unless maybe the amps he saves for the road, don't get touched. There are just so many you wouldn't believe it. Sweet little Vox. That's what amps looked like when I was a kid. And out of all those amps, which one do you think sounded the best? If you said the Silvertone, you would be correct. Yes, you could buy that from the Sears Roebuck catalog. And I want to see how many of you guys in the chat know what this is. It's going to be, you have to be like over 50 to know this. What do you guys think that is? Echoplex, Keith LeBrant, that figures. Yep, that's an Echoplex. When I first started out working in studios, which was, I believe, 1975, I can never remember if it's late 74 or early 75, but Echoplexes were still commonly used, and that was, analog delay, if you will. They sounded great, and they've still got that one sitting in the control room, so clearly it gets used. And here is the man himself, Rupert Neve. I'm generally not inclined to steal stuff, but I really want to take that home. I mean, how cool is that? A Rupert Neve bobblehead holding onto a console. That's what you call a compact console. There's Dave. That's actually a pretty good little, I don't think that one was a bobblehead. I think that's just a little statue. That's self-explanatory. And if you wonder, did Michael enjoy himself? Look at the look on my face. I was in hog heaven. I had such a great time there. Coincidentally, some Taxi members from very long time ago that became the band Money Cat, M-U-N-N-Y Cat. They're quite successful in getting placements, especially TV commercials. They were there shooting a video of the session and doing still shots, and they took that one. So thank you, Katie Ann and Khalid. And here we are back live again. Okay, let me get that chat room back in. Let me find my phone. I got to make it a little cooler in here. Air conditioning, there it is. And then now we're going to proceed. Okay. On with the questions. So the ones that I wrote about in the email that went out, want to know how many tracks you really need before music libraries take you seriously? I get that question all the time, and frankly, the answer will surprise you, and I'm going to tell you today. You don't need a quantity of tracks. If they hear 1, 2, or 3 that they think are great, then they're going to ask you for more. But I don't think that you're more inclined to get signed by saying, oh, I've got 300 tracks in my catalog. They'd probably be more impressed if you said, I'm in a couple of other libraries, because if you were good enough for those other libraries, you're good enough for their library in many cases. So that's the answer. A lot of people wait to join Taxi until they've built up a whole catalog of stuff. The thing is, they're not building that catalog in response to briefs. So it's kind of a waste of time. You have a catalog of stuff that may or may not have value, especially if you're newer. If you're a seasoned sync music creator, then you would already know what kind of tracks are kind of in demand, or what your forte is, or what the tracks are that are in demand by the libraries that you're already working with. So in that respect, it's a little different answer. But if you're brand new and library reaches out in response to something we forwarded from Taxi, don't tell them, oh, I've got 200 tracks. They really don't care. let's see. If you wonder why some perfectly good songs never get licensed, I can tell you that at 4 p.m. today as well. Well, actually at 4:25 p.m. Also tell you how long it typically takes to see your first placement and what affects that timeline. So you could have a perfectly good song. You guys that are regular watchers hear me talk about this all the time. You could have a great song. You could have a number one hit. But if it isn't a song that is going to amplify the mood or amplify the tension in a scene or the action in a scene or have a lyric that somehow relates to the scene, doesn't matter if it's a hit. They don't generally want hits. They don't want people listening to the music going, wow, that's amazing music, because then your mind is wandering off what the actors are saying and off the storyline. How long it typically takes to see your first placement? There's so many variables involved in that. Probably you could say it's a function of how many things you have in how many libraries, but there's a caveat. You could have 100 death metal things in 10 different catalogs, but death metal isn't a genre that gets requested or used a lot in TV or film. It obviously gets used sometimes, but it's not nearly as popular as like a tension cue or a dramedy cue or a heartbreak singer-songwriter song or myriad other things that would probably get requested and used more often. So it depends. It's a function of what kind of music you're making and how in demand it is and how many catalogs you're in. Those are the things that will ultimately determine what the timeline is of getting your first placement. Want to know how to make home recordings sound more expensive without buying new gear? For the guys in the audience today, I hope your wives aren't watching, because have them call me. I'll tell them that you need new gear, okay? But something I've never spoken about, I don't believe, ever on a TAXITV or a Quarantini Happy Hour, and that is that the relationship of the bass and the kick means so much to making recordings sound like they're pro recordings. And people generally don't pay much attention to it. Let's face it, if you're a guitar player, or you're a multi-instrumentalist, but guitar is your first and your main instrument, you're going to pay far more attention to how the guitars sound and what the guitars are doing than the kick and the bass. I learned that literally day number one at Criteria Studios in Miami, where I started my career. The song, Love Will Keep Us Together by Captain and Tennille was probably number one at the time. And I had an engine blow up in a car of mine, so I had a rent-a-wreck rental for about 3 months when they replaced the engine. And it was this old American Motors, I think it was a Gremlin, actually. Worst car I've ever driven, by the way. I'm sorry if I've offended the people at American Motors. But it had an AM radio with a mono speaker in it, and I remember hearing Love Will Keep Us Together. And the relationship of the kick and the bass in that song was perfect for that time anyway. And it's something that I've noticed the entire 50 years that I've been in the music industry and been a studio-loving guy, and that is that so many home recording enthusiasts just don't pay attention to the kick and the bass relationship, number one, and the level, number two. I'm kind of amazed by how many recordings out there that don't have a really tight, firm, punchy bottom. But if you achieve that, everything else just seems to sound right. So that's how you can make stuff sound expensive without going out and buying new gear and putting 6 plugins on everything. Just EQ the bass and the kick. First of all, start with them not EQ'd and work on the relationship of the two together. And then just sit back and listen to them and go, well, I guess I can take that out. Listen to them and go, Do they give you that? Do they hit you in the chest? I mean, obviously, certain kinds of music that wouldn't be applicable for, but for the average pop record or the average rock record, there's just something so magical about the bass and the kick working well together. Things that people should consider are, where is your bass drum tuned to? There are people that will tune the kick drum to the key of the song. Obviously, it's in the lowest possible octave, but it gets so muddy down there. So I've seen people tune it up a whole octave to get the head really tight and then boost the bottom on the EQ somewhere around 100 hertz. There is no exact prescription. It's going to change by the key of the song, by the tempo of the song. Did I say I was sick all weekend and still sick? I've got a frog in my throat. Hang on, guys. Sorry. Anyway, if I were still making records today, I would concentrate on the relationship of the kick and the bass, and then bring in the snare. Thank you. Who said that? Was that Marion? Yeah, Marion. I even got funny. The answer to that one is so easy, you're going to kick yourself for not thinking of it all by yourself. And the answer is right up there with the fastest way to improve your mixes without touching a plug-in. You know what? Less instruments, less tracks, more space, better sounding mixes. There's nothing worse than trying to resuscitate or improve or rescue a mix because it's just got 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. And you can sit there and carve out EQ or add EQ, change balances all day long, but if it's just got too much stuff. So apply the famous quote that I learned from my dad, which is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. You can add parts pretty much all the time. Go, yeah, that works. But do you need it? Does it make the song sound more like a hit by adding that part? And the vast majority of the time, the answer is no. So there you go. Oh, let's see. I have one more here. Couple more. Want to know what successful Taxi members do between submissions? This is something I've, have many successful Taxi members that have become my friends because they've been Taxi members for a long time, and I love their work and I love them as people. One thing that I find is a common thread amongst many of them, if not all of them, is that they think strategically about the kind of music they make. So if they've got a dark day in the studio, as we used to call it back in real studios, you've got a home studio and you're not writing a piece of music today for whatever reason, sit down and look at the stuff that you have had accepted into libraries most frequently, and look at the things that have gotten placements from your catalog or from the library's catalogs most frequently, and you will begin to see patterns, and those patterns help you think strategically about the kind of music you're going to make next. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't just do whatever tickles your fancy and makes you feel good, but if you want to do this for a living, if you want to do sync for a living, start looking at the kind of music that you're making from a strategic perspective. Again, should you spend a week doing a bunch of heavy metal instrumentals or songs? Probably not. There's not that much call for them. So that's it. Just think strategically about what performs best and do more of that and get it into more catalogs that work on shows that use that kind of music. A singer-songwriter song or a pop song, about love, is probably not going to do very well in a catalog that primarily focuses on instrumental stuff for reality shows. So there you go. That's why I always tell you, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't sign everything you create with one company because they're really nice people and they get you and they love you and they appreciate your music. You could be putting stuff in a catalog that doesn't have any clients that need that kind of music. Maybe they don't want to hurt your feelings, so they sign it. Maybe they hear it and go, wow, that's really good. Someday somebody's going to want to license that. I think that is a bad move on the part of the library. I know they don't come at it from a bad place. They're not trying to hurt you or rip you off or anything, but they may sign it because they go, wow, that's really good. Someday I could have a client or an editor that asks me for that kind of thing. Your song could sit in that catalog for 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years, or maybe never get licensed from that catalog. Whereas if it were in a catalog that supplied music to shows that use that kind of stuff, maybe it get used in a week or a month or 6 months or a year. So I'm just saying you can think strategically about what you're making and where you're putting it, and dramatically improve the number of placements that you're going to get. Okay, and the last thing I had on my list was a mixing habit that I wish I had broken sooner. Listen up, ladies and gentlemen, a mixing habit that I wished I'd broken sooner. I can't tell you how many times I started mixes by bringing up the kick drum by itself and just EQing that to sound like a perfect kick drum. Then bringing up the snare and working for an hour on that to make it sound amazing. At the time, I would say the Doobie Brothers records were well known for having great sounding snare drums for, pop rock kind of stuff, yacht rock they would probably call it now. So for years, I would take each track, starting with the drums. I would do kick first, snare second, toms third. And then overheads, which I rarely EQ'd other than a high-pass filter, just to roll off any rumble from the kit or, kind of bass build-up in the room. And I would sit there and make the drum sound perfect, but then realize 2 or 3 hours into the mix, they sounded perfect all by themselves, but not in the context of the whole song. You should look at stuff holistically. And the better way to do it, in my opinion, everybody's got one, but my opinion is bring up all the tracks without any EQ. Just pan them where you think they should go and bring them up. No EQ, no compression, no reverb, and listen. Just sit there and listen and go, okay, what is this missing? And start your mix from there. Maybe things like the acoustic guitar is really tubby in the bottom. Well, if you roll some of that out, 400, 500, 600, 7 hertz, and dip some of that out, all of a sudden the tom-toms sound better. Whoa. But in my first couple of years of mixing, I would sit there and make those tom-toms sound amazing. Like other engineers would walk in the room and go, dude, those drums sound amazing. And then when I got to, near the end of the whole mix, the toms didn't sound amazing anymore. They sounded like tick, 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 because there were other things competing in the lower frequencies with them. So there is no absolute prescription for anything as far as recording goes or mixing, in my opinion. If anybody's got absolute prescriptions for it, I'd love to buy that book. They're recommended practices, places to start, but there really aren't any hard, fast rules. But if you just bring everything up and get a good balance and just listen to it, shut your eyes and think, what needs to be fixed? It's a better approach for mixing. Okay, let's take stuff that we got in the email box. This one's from Edward Klozuski. Sorry if I butchered your last name. Klozuski. Yeah. Someone else plays or sings on your recording. What do you need to have from those individuals to be able to get published and paid? It's not about getting published and paid. It's about licensing the song in the context of film and TV, certainly. You would need a work for hire signed. It's a very short thing. It's a few sentences. Basically, it says, I came in and played guitar in this track or sang the vocal on this track. I got paid $100, and that's the full extent of what I did. I release you from all other blah, 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 signed and dated. Pretty much that simple. I mean, you can Google work for hire agreements for the recording studio and find some that are a little more eloquent than what I just said. But what I just said is basically all you need. They want to make sure that if somebody plays a bass part, here's a great example. Very early on in my studio career, Rod Stewart was at Criteria cutting the song, Do You Think I'm Sexy? There's a keyboard player named Dwayne Hitchings. It was a regular part of Rod's band, certainly in the studio, if not on the road. Sorry, my ears are so plugged up today. I'm hearing myself like I'm wearing headphones with no audio coming through them, that. Anyway, I was, I think, vacuuming the carpet in the lobby of Studio C at Criteria, and they were working on that song. And through the back wall where the pinball machine was on the other side, oddly, where you put a pinball machine on the back side of the control room wall, they did have double thick concrete block walls with an air gap in the middle, and the floors were floated and the walls rested on the float, all that stuff. But you could still hear bow, wow, bow, 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 through the wall. And if I'm not mistaken, years later, that resulted in a lawsuit because it became the signature part of the song. And Dwayne Hitchings wrote that. He came up with that lick. And years later, I think I'm getting this right, he decided that he should be considered a co-writer on it. And there was a lawsuit that ensued. I think he might have actually won that. However, if he'd been paid for the session and signed a work for hire with Rod Stewart and or the label, producer, whatever, that lawsuit probably wouldn't have happened. So there you go. This one is from Tom Irvin. I've recently seen more taxi listings that say your song cannot be signed with another music library with an exclusive or non-exclusive contract. I always thought the non-exclusive contract would be advantageous to the songwriter since it would preserve the songwriter's ability to make non-exclusive deals with other libraries. I would have to see the actual listing to be able to answer this properly. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, there are taxi listings where we're building a compilation and we tell you that it probably shouldn't be signed anywhere non-exclusively because most of the companies we work with, not all, but many, if not most, are nowadays exclusive. And even though you've got a non-exclusive with Library A, Library B, if they're exclusive, is not going to sign something that's already in somebody else's catalog non-exclusively. You could put it in 2 or 3 or 5 non-exclusive catalogs. I would say the non-exclusive thing, he goes on to say, there's still advantages for the songwriter to sign a non-exclusive deal. Yeah, it's great, if you've got 5 libraries with the same piece of music in it. There's so many complications involved with it. If I were you, if I were in your shoes, I would probably have some stuff in some non-exclusive catalogs, maybe in 2 or 3 non-exclusive catalogs. And I would also understand that the vast majority of my output is going to be signed to companies that have exclusive contracts. So I don't think that there is any reason to not sign a non-exclusive deal. I think that the AI-generated music thing, whatever is over the horizon regarding AI music, I'm really curious to see what happens with that because more and more companies, more and more catalogs are allowing their catalogs to be scraped for data and being paid for that. I don't know that that a company like Suno would want to scrape a catalog that's non-exclusive because there may be some other legal complications that because I'm sick today, my brain's not working all that well, or I just don't understand it well enough, there could be complications. But generally speaking, I think you're fine doing both exclusive and non-exclusive. But in answer to the earliest part of your question, your song cannot be signed with another music library with an exclusive or non-exclusive contract. I would need to see that in context before I could answer that intelligently. And actually, the way my head feels so stuffed up today, I'm not sure I could answer anything intelligently. Here's question number 3 from Michael Lehman. I asked a songwriter pro who is a regular Taxi Road Rally mentor whether Songs for Sync can have a structure which doesn't necessarily require a chorus that reaches a new high. I think you mean like a chorus that just jumps out, that pops out, right? Such as is generally the case in a modern artist pop song. The mentor said, absolutely. I'm having a little trouble understanding the way you worded this, Michael Lehman. I asked a songwriter pro who's a regular Taxi Road Rally mentor whether Songs for Sync can have a structure which doesn't necessarily require a chorus that reaches a new high, pops out. Such as is generally the case in a modern artist pop song. So I think what you're saying is, I would say it's been a definite trend over the last several years, that there are songs that have become hits, and I sit there scratching my head going, dude, where's the chorus? The chorus should just be like, boom, in your face. There should be a pre-chorus that, ramps you up to that, and then, boom, delivers the 1-2 punch with the chorus. That kind of went away. I mean, sometime maybe in the 2017, 2018 era, there were songs that were huge hits that didn't happen. So the mentor advised Michael Lehman, absolutely. A song which I submitted to the sync song category at the recent rally was critiqued as not having a chorus which lifted to a high point. I'm just looking for general comments on this. Okay, so I think what you're referring to, a song you submitted to the sync song category for the listening panel in the ballroom, I think that's what you're referring to. And one of the people that was critiquing on the panel must have said, it doesn't really have a chorus that pops out. Just looking for general comments. So it was definitely a style. It is still somewhat of a style. I think we're going back the other direction with choruses that pop out more. Certainly songs are shorter today. Choruses that have fewer words, punchier phrases seem to be more popular. But I think it could go either way. And I think that was just, man, I'm a bobblehead today. That's my head's moving around a lot. I think that was just a comment that one person expressed. Like, it doesn't pop out. Sometimes, not as often as the chorus, but sometimes the verse may be the section that they use. Maybe there's a tender little line in the verse that relates really well to the scene. Or maybe the overall tone and mood of the verse is what works in the scene. It doesn't always have to be the chorus. So I think there's a place in the world for both. My personal opinion is that songs, I personally just, maybe that's the producer in me, but I want a chorus to be right in your face. I want you to be singing that chorus before, when it comes around second time, I want you singing with it. And I found that to be problematic for me and my personal taste, that over the last, 7, 8 years maybe, that choruses just didn't pop out. It's like, how does anybody remember this song? Song structure, typical song structure, the most common is A, B, A, B, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and out. But in the world of everybody having shortened attention spans, in the world of music being used on TikTok or other social media, you know what? Maybe they found out that those super hipster songs that were like too cool to have a chorus that popped, they couldn't cut that chorus out and use it in TikTok video. So maybe people are drifting back in that direction. Let's see. I'm trying to read the chat, funny enough, because I took some antihistamines before. My vision's a little blurry and I can't read the chat all that well. Oh, well. Anyway, those are my general comments. Sorry I can't give you an absolute that represents what the entire industry thinks about it, but that's my opinion. This one is question number 4 from Xavier Lopez. I'm a recent songwriter who has written a few songs just looking to release my emotions from a very tough lows, I think loss. I wrote the words and used an app to bring those words to life. Well, needless to say, every is outstandingly impressed. I think he meant to say everybody is outstandingly impressed and would love to hear the songs on the radio either as is or redone by a known artist. I can't sing, nor do I want to cheat a respective artist at a chance for their own stardom. All I'm looking for is a way to present those words to the industry and perhaps have an artist take them over and what may come of it. Do you have any advice for a novice like me? Yes, I do. I've been in the industry for 50 years. Never once in all those 50 years have I had anybody say, gee, I wish there were some great lyrics out there that I could sit down and write to. That's generally not the way it's done. I think what you want to do is find yourself a collaborator. And my best advice to you would be go to the Taxi forums at forums.taxi.com. Once again, that's forums.taxi.com, forums.taxi.com. And you will see an area in there called Collaboration Corner. And you can just put like a 2-sentence thing in there, make your subject header, lyricist looking to collaborate. What you want to do is find somebody who's really good with, with melody and production and builds tracks really well and can come up with great melodies, but they can't write a lyric to save their life. And maybe the two of you sit down and put your heads together and see what you can come up with. But it's always been a pipe dream, I believe. I feel a little rude in calling it that, but I believe it is a pipe dream. People that write a lyric, especially a heartfelt lyric, especially about a personal experience, and you talk about loss. Maybe it was the loss of a loved one, if that's true. I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe it's a lost love. Maybe it's a positive emotion, just fell in love, brand new, romance. Whatever it is that stirs your emotions and makes you write this out to you, this is incredibly important, and it means everything because you know the entire backstory. Part of what is becoming part of being a great lyricist, and again, not in 100% of all cases, but in many, if not most, is writing a lyric that makes other people feel like you felt when you wrote it. And by telling a story, whether it's positive, negative, new love, old love, loss of somebody you loved, all those things that stir emotions, if you're going to put in every little detail about in the timeline of that story, you're going to lose the audience. So part of the art of becoming a pro lyricist is learning how to say, 2 paragraphs worth of stuff in 2 sentences, 2 short sentences. And that's really hard to do. It takes years of learning how to do that, but when you do, it's a beautiful thing. So that's my advice on that, Xavier. Thanks for writing in. This is from Nacho Mena. Because I live in Spain, I usually can't attend the live streams, and English isn't my native language. I'm not so sure it's mine today. So I tend to watch the episodes later with subtitles and take notes. Thank you for going to that trouble. I appreciate it. Even so, I'd love to participate more, and I hope these questions might be useful for other Taxi members as well, especially those who are starting out and want to avoid mistakes with publishers. First question, AI and vocal correction. A lot has already been clarified regarding AI, but I still have one very specific question. Would it be considered acceptable to use an AI tool, for example, Ace Studio, not familiar with that, only to correct the pronunciation of a word or short phrase using my own voice? Probably. Believe AI stuff is so hard. I don't think everybody's standards are the same. I mean, there's kind of an industry-wide standards, like we don't want any AI-generated music. Okay, so that is number one. By the way, on Wednesday of this week, we sent an email to, 50 of our clients, vast majority of which are music libraries, the ones that are currently active with us, and we're doing a Zoom meeting with them on the singular topic of AI, just to get a read on where they're at. Because we do these things, like once a quarter, twice a year, where we get together with our clients and talk about issues like this. And obviously AI is the big issue of the day. But, last time we talked about it, the PROs hadn't said that music generated with AI is okay as long as the human input is greater than the AI input. But you're on the honor system when you register those songs with your PRO. So I would imagine, people being people, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to fudge what, how much of that was human and how much was AI. And the same thing is true for registering a copyright now in the United States. And trust me, the laws are somewhat, if not very different in other countries. That's another issue. But so if you've got a copyright office that is willing to let people register a copyright where the song is substantially human but has some AI stuff in it, and if you have PROs that are basically following the same rule, and it's all in the honor system, which I don't know how else there are AI detectors out there, some better than others, but nobody's going to sit there at the copyright office listening to every single song that comes in and running it through a detector. And you could use AI for your mastering, and the AI detector would say, AI, gotcha, busted, even though you've done nothing wrong by mastering it. So, all that said, I think you're okay for using it to correct the pronunciation if your own voice is where the data came from. If you trained it with your own voice, I think that would be okay. It's kind of like using Melodyne or something. Sorry, I forgot to mute my phone. To be clear, the AI be trained exclusively on my own voice. I think that's okay. Again, not an attorney. I'm not so sure any music attorneys could tell you exactly. The goal wouldn't be to generate a new vocal performance to replace a word or phrase. That's probably fine. It's like using pitch correction, Melodyne, whatever. Publicly sharing unsigned music. Another question I often think about. If I share songs that are not yet signed on my website, I didn't say that correctly. If I share songs that are not yet signed on my website or on a private public platform like SoundCloud, purely to showcase my work to other composers or to potential editors, could that be a reason for a publisher to reject these songs later simply because they've been publicly accessible? We have a few companies that say that they don't want to sign anything that has been out in the wild, that is out there, period. They just don't. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure somebody on the staff probably knows. I can't think of what the reason is for that. I'm sure I've heard it before, but can't remember it. So he goes on to say, to clarify, songs will not be released via any distributor, not registered with platforms like Spotify, and not under any publishing agreement, just available for listening. How do publishers view this? I think most would be okay, but there are some that say they don't want to sign anything or don't even pitch them anything that is available commercially in any way, shape, or form. What defines commercially? I don't know. Commercial to me would be, if it's on a streaming service that you pay for, if you paid for a download, if you bought a CD or vinyl, I don't know. That makes it commercial in my opinion. I don't know that putting it on SoundCloud, especially if you put it on SoundCloud and keep it private where only people that you give access to it can get to it to hear it, like you want another co-writer or collaborator to hear the style, that's fine. As long as it's not publicly available, I think you're okay. And it doesn't happen all that often. Question number 3, sharing signed work. Sorry, I should have just stayed in bed today. Sharing signed work as social proof. Finally, once a song has been signed and released by a publisher as part of their catalog, is it generally acceptable to share a link to that album or catalog page on my website or social media as social proof without naming the publisher? Simply show that my music is signed and present in international sync catalogs. That's kind of an odd way to show it. I mean, you can't really share a link to that album or catalog page without showing who the catalog is. And you know what? This is a mistake that virtually all people who are involved in sync make. And I hate to sound like an old stick in the mud, but if you're trying to be, the quarterback on a football team, are you going to send the guy who is the backup quarterback to your same trainer, coach, whatever? Are you going to give them all the advantages you've had? Well, if you're a super generous, good-hearted person, you probably would. But you are enhancing the skills of that second-string quarterback that could take your job someday. So I wrestle with this because I see the taxi community is incredibly generous with everything they've learned, and that's part of what makes the community so special. However, I see people sharing library contacts with people all the time. I know that some people do it as a way to, I'll turn you on to my guy at this company if you turn me on to your guy and give me entree at that company. It's horse trading at that point, and I understand why it happens. And some people that I've had conversations with about this will say, well, I do all orchestral stuff, and they do pop rock, guitar-driven pop rock stuff. So they're really not a competitor of mine. But you know what? Someday they could be. Maybe they decide to start doing orchestral. They decide they want to branch out a little bit. So on one hand, I think the generous sharing of contacts is cool and generous and makes the community part of, helps the community feel like a community. On the other hand, you are creating competitors. And I've seen several, if not many, actual real world examples of that. So just saying. And you don't want social proof. I mean, the best social proof in the world is just say, I've been signed by 5 libraries. If somebody's interested, and if they need to know, they'll ask you. Somebody may ask you. Just don't put it out there. Anytime you put, I've got stuff, I see it on Twitter all the time. People will thank, and I get why they do this. Thank you, XYZ Music, for getting my song in this TV show. And I think they do it. Number one, they want to be polite and appreciative. I get that. But by doing that, if 5,000 people see your post on Twitter or Instagram or wherever it goes, some percentage of those people are going to write down the name of that company, and then they're going to cold email them or cold call them. So by putting the name out there, you've basically raised a flag saying, this company got me this awesome placement, to everybody else who would like to have also gotten that placement and knock you out of position. So you are creating competition. And frankly, I don't think that saying thank you publicly with the company's name on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, wherever you're doing it, do you really, maybe you're just doing it because you're a nice person, and that's laudable. I don't think that the libraries are going to go, wow, that was so kind of him to thank me publicly. The next time there's another thing, I'm going to make sure to pitch his or her music because they publicly thanked me, and I'm going to return the favor. I really don't think that that happens at all, or certainly not enough. That the trade-off is you're giving away the keys to the kingdom by naming those companies. We get taxi success stories every month from people that tell us XYZ library got me this placement. We take out the library name. We don't need to be feeding those to your competitors. So we take out the library names and make it say by an awesome Los Angeles-based music library. So there you go. Social proof. You don't need to name the libraries. This one's from question number 5 from Chuck Morgan. I have a song in which I used AI to assist me in getting my song just right. And he put assist in all caps. In some cases, the lyrics were written by me. It's the operative word, some cases. Or the storyline is created by me, so I can get the lyrics exactly the way I want them. I may utilize AI for the melody and accompaniment. Great music has and does utilize different digital means to help create it. Electronically produced instrumentation such as drum and guitar tracks and loops, keyboard sounds and accompaniment, etc. Agency requests to submit my music. This doesn't make sense. People should please reread your emails before you send them. The first word in the sentence is agency request to submit my music through Taxi. Prohibit my submissions if I have utilized any form of AI. Can you encourage the agencies to accept this created source? It is still beautiful and creative, done through the heart of a creator. Unfortunately, copyright laws, say that anything that's created by it's got to have human content. They left the door pretty widely open by saying mostly human. Who the hell knows what mostly is? These are all things that are going to shake out in 2026, I'm pretty sure. Maybe I should do an episode where we just talk about where would you like to see AI go. I'm curious. But we're going to be talking about this in depth with, I don't know, see how many libraries participate. One of the libraries reached out and asked if they could have several people from their staff join us in this discussion. I want to know. Honestly, on one hand, I understand that people who've invested a lot of time, effort, in years of their lives learning how to be proficient on multiple instruments, and how to become great engineers and producers in their home studios. It's like everything is negated by the fact that you can type in a prompt. And by the way, typing in a prompt is not creating music. That's giving a direction. It's not saying, play A, then G, and then, D minor for the melody. You could say, I want to write a love song. I'd like it to be, 90 BPM, featuring an acoustic guitar, a male voice. The song should have a bridge, and it should be about falling in love for the very first time. That is not songwriting. That's an instruction. I'm not going to tell you so much what my opinions are, but I've got some. I think the day is going to come. I think that there are a lot of very talented Taxi members who are multi-instrumentalists who can't play a saxophone. Maybe you want to use AI to put in a sax part or something. I don't know. But then are you screwing a sax player out of the $100, $200 they might have gotten for playing the part? Well, you could make the same case for a drum machine, couldn't you? But yet everybody uses drum machines. And as far as AI goes, you've been using AI for years. Things like, the drummer in Logic. There's no way that doesn't have a lot of AI in it. AI mastering, Ozone. But that's okay. Using Drummer is okay because that is not melody or lyric. It is a beat. But somehow the industry doesn't seem to have any problem with that. I shouldn't even go down this road right now because everybody has a differing opinion on it. But I think the day is going to come fairly soon when you guys will be able to use AI more than you are now, as long as it's a tool. But for people who want to create something out of whole cloth, being AI, because you had a breakup and your heart is broken and you're going to type in a 3 or 4 sentence prompt and then a song comes out, and even though the song will probably be pretty darn impressive, it probably won't be as impressive. Take somebody who is already a talented songwriter or composer and they're using AI as a tool. Do I think that it would be awesome to take a song with a Chinese lyric and translate it to English using AI and then have an English vocal? Yeah, great. But if the data that was scraped that makes that new vocal with ill-gotten gains, if you will, the data was scraped illegally, then a whole other issue. But then you've got companies like Universal and Warner's that are making deals with Suno and Udio, so who knows? But the one prediction I feel safe in making is that 2026 is going to be the year. And I think that, as I've thought for at least 4 or 5 years right now, I think Taxi will really shine, because if there are more and more people creating great music at a faster rate, somebody still has to filter it, curate it, and that's what we do. So there's that. I can't encourage the agencies to accept anything. They're following the law. By me telling them, come on, please, please, please do this for the sake of all these people out there who so badly want you to do it. That's not going to have any influence. I wish I had that much power, but not going to happen. This one's from Alan Vincent. I'm confused by the opening paragraph of your message, specifically the part about it being okay to submit music that has been created using AI plugins. I may be misunderstanding this as although I have not yet submitted any music yet. I have for some time been using Musicfy, which I'm not familiar with, to great effect to create backing vocals for my songs where the background vocals would be out of my natural range. These are triggered by my voice and said to be by Musicfy to be royalty free. What does royalty free even mean anymore? I have stopped using that at the moment in fear of being accused of breaking the no AI rules when I do submit music. Is there any clarification as to what AI plugins you're referring to? If you have something that made your bass sound better and it used AI to do that, that might be acceptable. Certainly AI drum programs where you can add, a little more swing or a little more human feel to it. And those have been around for a long time. Not just samples, but programs like Drummer in Logic that actually does a little bit of thinking for you and gives you a lot of available options. Sorry, my throat's going out. Certainly, so many people are like, oh my God, I can't submit music that I've mastered using Ozone or any of the AI plugins that do mastering. You can. Really, what they're trying to say is don't send us anything where the music has been generated by AI, meaning melody, lyric, or track. There's so much more I want to say. I could go deeper, but I would just be confusing you, and I don't want you to consider anything I'm saying about AI today as gospel truth. It's just one guy's opinion. It could be that the background vocals that your AI is using, they may say they're royalty free. I would read the fine print. You might even want to have a music attorney read their fine print. Royalty free in what context? Royalty free if you use it as a YouTube creator could be one thing. Royalty free if it ends up in a major motion picture? might be a whole different can of worms. So there's just so much to know, and there are no easy answers. The only thing that gives me comfort is that it's moving forward very quickly. The tech, of course, is outpacing legislation, and it will force legislation to have to come about, although I don't have a lot of faith in legislators moving very quickly or understanding this. But there will be lobbyists, and I'm sure that companies like Suno and Udio will pay for lobbyists to help our senators and Congress people better understand what they're dealing with. This is from Mark Enkin. I've had some forwards and some have ended up in contracts. I've written some jazz tunes that have been forwarded, but no contracts. Is that because there are many more jazz submissions and the supervisors have much more to choose from? No, I don't think that's the case. Jazz is not a huge category. Cocktail jazz. My wife and I were watching the show Mad Men, season 1 of Mad Men over the weekend. And I think it was in season 1, somewhere around episode 7 or 8, there were 3 uses of cocktail jazz in restaurants within 15 minutes of each other. And I said to my wife, see, that's why I'm always telling people, do cocktail jazz, because it always plays behind really long conversations in the show. And when that happens, you're going to have 3 or 4 minutes of your music playing. You get paid more for that. So I'm a big fan of cocktail jazz, solo piano cocktail jazz in particular, but small ensemble cocktail jazz perfectly fine as well. We don't get that many submissions for jazz. There are not a lot of people that can confidently say, I make great jazz music. That takes a certain level of commitment and expertise and years of practice to become great at jazz. So I don't think that there's so much of it. But then again, jazz has been around for a long time. Maybe catalogs have a lot. I don't have a great answer for you on that one. Sorry. This one's from David Rogers. We have 2 albums, a 2024 release and a 2025 release, that have been distributed to streaming services through DistroKid. We retain copyright and all music is registered through BMI. How does this affect the ability of making license deals as presented through Taxi? You're totally fine. Being distributed by DistroKid, 100% fine. CD Baby, any of those organizations. What you have to watch out for is if they say, would you like us to license your music or monetize your music? Or you sign up for, I don't even know if DistroKid has a DistroKid Premium or Plus or anything like that. It's when you give them permission to license your music. And they're not like out there working it like a music library is. They don't have it organized by category like a music library does. Basically, if a music supervisor or editor happens to stumble on your piece of music on Spotify or YouTube or wherever, and says, it reaches out, says, I'd love to license that, they're going to do the license agreement. They're going to do the paperwork, the admin on it, and they're going to get their percentage. The bummer is you can't take that piece of music that you have that agreement in place with DistroKid or CD Baby or whomever, and also sign it to a music library that has an exclusive agreement, because you've already signed a publishing administration deal. But as far as distribution goes, you can have that all day long. It doesn't matter. It's actually, it's great that it's registered with BMI. So there you go. I hope that answers that well for you. And here's one from Colin O'Brien. Colin, I think I just saw you in the Member Success Stories recently. If that's the same Colin O'Brien, congratulations. I'm registered at BMI as a writer. I do not currently have a publisher account. Should I have one? If so, why? The answer is yes, because there will be times that you get a piece of music placed and you don't have it with a library or somebody, some other publisher, and BMI will pay the writer's share and the publisher's share. If they don't have a place to send the check to the publisher, then they won't send it. Although recently, I just saw something like the middle of last week where somebody was giving out different advice than I just gave, but I didn't have a chance to check the veracity of it, so I don't absolutely know for sure. Whoever it was might have said something like, if you don't have a publishing company set up or a publishing bank account, then you get all of it. I think that person may have been wrong. Bottom line is, if I were a songwriter, I could have Michael Laskow, songwriter, registered to BMI, and I could have Michael Laskow music registered to BMI, as long as they just want a place to send the check. Believe me, they're not looking that closely. They just want their computer to be able to send one check to the writer, one to the publisher. Do you have to do, set up a corporation, all that stuff? Maybe when you get a little further down the road. Initially, you could just set up a checking account, Michael Laskow Music, doing business as Michael Laskow Music. I don't think you need to jump through any legal hoops or pay any annual tax structure. There's like an $800 a year thing if you're in business. Sorry, I can't think straight today. My brain is mush. Anyway, I think you're okay. You can set up a publisher account, Michael Laskow Music. Yeah, do that. Set up an account that's called Michael Laskow Publisher. Call me when the show's over, and I'll give you the routing number and the bank account number. All right, let's take some from inside the chat room. Thank you all for being so patient with me being sick. Question: are you familiar with Martin's Sound, a recording venue? Is it still a thing? Never heard you mention it, that place. Nope, I don't know Martin's Sound. But you know what? There are a lot of studios out in the world. I don't know all of them. Peter Rahill asked me that question. Okay, next question. Now I'm confused. Can I pitch songs that have been self-released on Bandcamp and on my own website, but not otherwise licensed? In most cases, there are probably 2 or 3 companies out of many dozens that we work with where they'll say, music cannot be commercially released anywhere. End of story. So just look at what the listing says. If it doesn't have that specific phrase in, you're fine. Greg Trammell says, I register my BMI stuff at 200%. I will get the check, I believe. Colin O'Brien, I'm cracking you up. I don't know. What did I say? Oh, that I want you to use my name and my bag. Can't blame a guy for asking. Here's a question from Keith LeBrant. Yo, KBL. I was a little late. What was the Project Chiarelli doing? A rock genre? Any backstories how he landed in that specific studio? It was one song as a single for a female artist. That's all I can really say at this time. Everything's very hush-hush. And I didn't hear any keyboards on the track. I heard great drums, Dave Grohl's actual studio drum kit. How could you go wrong with going through a classic Neve console, an 8028, not even like an 8068? Wow. And I'm trying to remember. I think I heard 3 or 4 guitar parts. I can tell you the guitar player on it was amazing. Studio player that Rob has worked with for like 30 years. Nicest guy in the world. He and Rob have great rapport. They complete each other's thoughts kind of relationship in the studio. The amps are out in the studio. and he was in the control room playing, and Rob would say, yeah, let's go to that section and give me a little double time thing. And the guy would play it down once. Rob goes, yep, that works great. Let's move on. It was literally happening that fast. I don't think they did more than 2 or 3 takes of anything. And it wasn't for execution. It was for, do you like it better this way or that way? So it was pretty amazing. Are you able to elaborate on any new taxi features coming our way in 2026? Well, the Taxi Garage, which we've been working on for well over a year, and blame it on the programmers. They're always, like, man, I can get this done for you in 30 days. That was a year ago. The programmer was supposed to have it done for the Road Rally. Here we are a month after the Road Rally, still not done. Great guy, super smart, moves really fast, still not done. So the garage basically is our members get frustrated by the fact that the screeners say, great piece of music, however, I can't forward it because it didn't really answer what the listing was asking for. It's like you go to a restaurant and you order minestrone soup and they bring you out matzo ball soup. Could be the best matzo ball soup in the entire friggin' world, but it ain't minestrone, and that's what you asked for. Same thing is true pretty much everywhere in the music industry. So we recognize that our members get very frustrated. But my wife thinks it's great. I think it's great. Your screener thought it was great, but he couldn't forward it. The garage will be an open listing. Do you have songs or instrumentals that you think a music library would want to have in their catalog? That's all the screeners will be screening for. They won't be screening it against references. They won't be screening it against genre. It's just if they hear it and go, oh yeah, I bet libraries would love to have this in their catalog, it will get categorized in the garage, which will be an online catalog that only our library clients have access to. The members won't be able to see it. The public won't be able to see it. And the libraries will get a heads up. We haven't decided if it's going to be once a week, once every 2 weeks. They will get an email from us. Hey, we've added 13 pop rock songs, 9 hip hop songs, 16 tension cues, whatever. And they can just go there anytime. So a library owner could do what I do and work on weekends. And decide, I wonder what's going on in the Taxi Garage. We're basing this on the fact that whenever we do our compilations, libraries didn't request those compilations. We send them out and they gobble up everything on the compilation, usually like in the first hour or two. A lot of the libraries that wait an hour or two to open the email and go listen to it get really upset that all the stuff has been signed already. So it's to solve a couple of problems. It's number one is how do we get more of your great music in their catalogs and get you more placements? And number two is how can we stop frustrating you when you don't meet the brief? So I think that this is going to be a huge thing for Taxi and our members. There is going to be some chicken and egg to it. The libraries won't find it very fruitful if it's not well stocked with music. So in the beginning, we expect things are going to go very slowly, and we expect a certain amount of trust and faith from our members when they're submitting to those. And we also hope that the members understand the chicken and egg thing to the point where it's like, okay, I put something in the garage, 4 months ago and nothing has happened. Well, first of all, maybe you put something in that there isn't a lot of demand for, and it's just waiting for the day where an editor or a library or whomever, supervisor, whoever is searching the garage needs that type of thing. So there's going to be some trust and faith and patience on the part of those of you guys who are submitting to it. And we can't really cram it down the library's throat like, hey, come on and check it out now if there's not enough good music in there. If they go there and see 121 tracks in a bunch of obscure genres, that'll be the only time they'll ever go to the garage. So that's my only fear, is what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but we'll get that worked out. Greg Trammell saying the garage will explode, taxi to new heights, from your mouth to God's ears. But yeah, somebody just said polka metal. Yeah, great example. I mean, there's just not, you may make the greatest polka in the world, but maybe libraries don't need it right now. But then a week from now, they're working on something and they need polka music, and they've only got 3 things in their catalog and they want a bunch more, and they don't have time to run a taxi listing and wait 30 days to get the music. I mean, we can get it to them overnight if we really needed to, but most of the time, their needs aren't like next day and immediate. But if they have something like that, they may very well find it in the garage. Something else we're doing with the garage is making it so we're not going to have your name and contact information associated with the music in the garage, because they'll just do an end run around us and we won't know that you got signed as a result of being a taxi member or being in the garage. So we are requiring the libraries to reach out to us and say, I need to get in touch with that member. We will, of course, immediately put you in touch, but then we will have something. The garage is also part of a massive database, and it will be able to say, hey, Keith LeBrant had something go to XYZ library on October 21st, and it will actually send us a tickler. Hey, Taxi, did you ever hear if Keith signed that track with that library? And we'll be able to reach out and find out, because in all honesty, Taxi members are pretty awful about telling us when they sign deals or get placements. It's gotten a little better recently because I've been bitching about it on the show quite frequently and at the road rally. But you'd be shocked. I mean, think about it. People go, I don't know if Taxi actually works out for anybody. Well, if you got one thing forwarded to a library 9 years ago, and if LeBrant is still watching the show, he will attest to this being not only the truth, but gospel truth. You get one thing forwarded to a library. Library says, I love that track. Can you make 10 more of those? I'd like to do a whole compilation, a whole album of that stuff and put it in my catalog. Why, sure, I can do that. Great. So 2 months later, you've got 11 songs, 10, 11 songs, whatever, in that genre in their catalog. And they say, by the way, can you also do this style? And you go, yeah. Oh, yeah, I can do that. And then you do some of that. Now you've got 20 songs in their catalog. And this relationship goes on like that for a number of years. How many placements result from all those things that you've gotten in their catalog because of one taxi forward years ago? And did you tell us about any of them? No. So it's really upsetting when people say, well, I had a friend that joined Taxi and nothing, only got one forward or nothing really worked out. Probably only made one submission. So this is a win for all of us, I believe. You guys will get more things signed. You will get more things placed. We will be able to track those relationships more fruitfully. And the libraries will be thrilled that they'll be able to have a very trusted resource, that they know that everything in that garage catalog is something that's been through the same screeners that's been screening their music forever. It's a win for, there is no downside other than you guys are going to have to be patient. And when you put something in the garage, if you're pitching it elsewhere and you get it picked up elsewhere and you don't tell us, it's going to make both of us look really stupid. When that day comes when a great library says, yes, I would love that track, and we connect you with the library and you go, oh, yeah, I signed that 4 months ago and forgot to take it out of the garage. So there's that. You know, we've tried to anticipate all the things that can go wrong, but there were so many more pluses than minuses. And the frustrating thing is it's like 80% done. So, yeah. I know better than to call the programmer, on December 15th, the holiday's coming up, nothing's going to happen. Starting on January 2nd, I'm going to be that programmer's worst nightmare. I'm an expert at laying Jewish guilt. I had a Jewish mother. She taught me well. I'm going to get that garage finished and rolled out in 2026. Another thing that I'm going to be rolling out very shortly, hopefully this week, is a new part of the Taxi Forum, which when I told the staff, they all went, duh, yeah. Free to use. Oh, the garage is going to be $5,000 a year. Kidding. I'm going to start a new forum based on, I'm looking around my office. Hang on, I'm going to go get a prop. I'll be right back. I don't know if this is going to show up the green screen or not. Nope. These are yellow stickers. We brought many rolls of these to the road rally this year because I had the genius idea about 6 months before the rally that we should create an efficient way for I'm a vocalist, or I can sing in French, or I can play the didgeridoo, or I'm looking for somebody who plays didgeridoo. So I looked at all these like dating sites and looked at the way people structured speed dating events, all kinds of stuff, and nothing was really hitting home for me. And then I thought, why not just make it stupidly simple? We brought these yellow stickers, we supplied everybody with Sharpies, and you could write on there French vocalist. I can write Chinese lyrics. I play the saxophone. I need an Italian lyricist, whatever your needs, whatever you're looking for, or whatever you offer. So I'm going to start a new forum. I haven't come up with the name of it, where you can do this online on the Taxi Forum. I play X, or I need XYZ. Simple. Sometimes the best ideas are, in fact, the simplest. I think that's called Occam's razor. All right, couple more questions, and we're going to wrap this up. Yeah, it's amazing how many Taxi members don't submit to these great opportunities for foreign language stuff. The libraries are hungry for it, and they're getting hungrier all the time. We're seeing more and more companies that are going. We're even getting requests for vintage French songs. Little harder. But look, all you guys are. Yeah, I sing in French, I sing in German, I sing in Italian and Spanish, blah, 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 blah. Yep, Taxi Marketplace. All right. Chuck says he has to sign off. I'm sorry, Chuck, but you don't have permission to leave class right now. You are getting sent to the principal's office. All right, you guys, let's wrap it up. Can AI be scrubbed from the music stems? No. You know what? I found out something interesting a couple months ago. I was made aware, I haven't double or triple checked this, but it came from a pretty credible source, that if you write using AI, and then you take what AI plays and you play it with your own two little hands or your own MIDI into your DAW, AI, the cloud up there, has actually remembered that melody. So even though you are not using the AI version, you're playing it into your DAW, if an AI detector, if you run that thing you created without AI ever touching your DAW, an AI detector can pick it up because it will remember that sequence of notes, those intervals. All right, there you go. Big announcement for next week's show. Next week's show, we're going to listen to Christmas music that you guys create. So we will be sending out an email this week. But for those of you who have Christmas music that is not signed to a publisher or one of those deals with, whatever, CD Baby, TuneCore, whatever, we're going to have you send that stuff in to Liz. Probably, you'll have to get it to us by Monday morning at like 10 a.m. or something. And we're just going to have a listening party, a holiday listening party with your Christmas music. Doesn't that sound like fun? Who's that from? Oh, Colin O'Brien. Michael, when I sign my deal from the offer I got at the rally, I'll write you a thank you note, doubling as a love letter. And don't forget to leave a blank field where I can put in my bank account number. Okay, Colin? All right, you guys, have a great night. Hope you enjoyed this episode. One more look at the Neve console. What do you say? Look at that. You look at that, and then you smile like this. What a day that was. All right, you guys, talk to you next week during another exciting episode of TAXITV Live.